Now, we're going to get to our guest speaker here. And let me just say a little bit about this gentleman. First of all, our guest speaker graduated from Emily City High School in 1994. Seems like yesterday, doesn't it? He earned a bachelor's degree at the University of Michigan in Flint. He enrolled in and completed an accelerated master's degree program at Wayne State University. His wife, Cindy, was a teacher for North Branch area schools and is at present principal at the Ruth Fox Elementary School. He joined the Sanilac County Sheriff Department in 2003, and in the next 2 years earned 3 Meritorious Service Awards. He has been with the Lapeer County Sheriff Department since 2005. Since joining this department, he's become a member of its Special Response and Dive Team. He served as a field training officer, a firearm instructor. He's taught mental health, first aid, and held many other positions. At this time, he is now our undersheriff for Lapeer County. Please welcome Jeramy Howe.
First off, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the invite out here. Unfortunately, Scott couldn't make it. He's in a funeral down in Florida. So you guys are getting shortchanged with me. If anybody has seen Scott speak, very good public speaker. I kid him. I always say, you know, have you seen the movie Braveheart? The movie Braveheart, he's like Mel Gibson of Braveheart with a lisp. I mean, really, he is that good, does very well. The intro on me is really what it is. I grew up in Hamtramck for a little while, single-parent mom. She met my stepdad. We moved up to the Emily City area after he got a job at Flint Truck and Bus in Flint. From there, graduated high school, went on to earn my bachelor's, then my master's. When I came out of my master's program, I started working as a psychotherapist at Sanilac County Community Mental Health. I did that for a couple years, and then I really got into my calling, which was law enforcement for me. I had a coworker whose husband was, at the time, the sergeant there. He is now the sheriff, Gary Banicki. Kind of guided me into that. So then I came home. I told my wife, I don't think this is for me. I think I'm going to get into law enforcement. Not happy. She was not happy. She kind of looked at me, what are you talking about? You know, so she was very supportive. I went on to the Flint Police Academy back in '02, completed that, went out, came out, got a job, Sanilac County Sheriff's Department, and that's how I ended up there. So that's a little bit of a bio on me. The only thing that probably isn't on that list is I worked undercover narcotics for several years over in Flint. I learned a ton, met a lot of people. But one of the big things that I did learn was the drug problem. And we do have a drug problem here in Lapeer County, okay? And if you guys have any questions, stop me anytime. It doesn't matter. This is very, to me, informal. I met Scott, actually, when I was working undercover. He was the chief at Mount Morris Township. When we would do raids, we would contact him, because he was the chief, and he would come out and assist us when we needed him. So that's kind of how I met Scott. We went on. I came back from the drug unit, came back here, got wind that Scott was thinking about running, talked to Scott a few times about it. After he won the election, he asked me to be his undersheriff, and I gladly accepted. Couldn't be more happy working for the guy. He's a great guy. His biggest thing when he was out campaigning that people were telling him was the drug problem. Now, we do have a drug problem. We have an opioid abuse, which is prescription drugs, and we also have a heroin problem. Those are our two big issues right now. The process that we want to attack this problem, we really want to start with the schools and doing an education part of it. For us, that's important. People thought maybe high school we should do that. We believe it's middle school, maybe even sooner. We both had cases. Scott had a case in Mount Morris Township. I had a case working here where kids were bringing pills into school, not knowing what they're putting into their body, not knowing what they're giving out, and kids were overdosing. I had 2 kids overdose. He had 3 kids overdose. 1 went into a coma, you know. And we're talking 7th and 8th graders. That's crazy, you know. For us, it was don't drink and don't do drugs. Don't smoke marijuana. I mean, it was, you know, so laid back compared to what we have today. Now we have all the prescription pills. We have the Vicodin, the Oxy, the morphine, the fentanyl. I mean, it's unlimited. And we didn't deal with doctors prescribing drugs when we were young, really, you know. So now these kids have sports injuries, and they're getting hooked on this stuff, you know. And once you know, the basic process to it is a kid gets hooked on it, the doctor stops prescribing it, and then it gets to a point where now they got to find something else. So when they find something else, it's heroin, right? Because the opioid is the main ingredient in it. So now we have kids getting hooked on heroin in 9th and 10th and 11th grade because they can't get their prescription for a knee injury or a back injury that they had playing sports. So it's, you know, it's not, you know, some schools are really nervous about talking about it because, you know, they don't want to be the bad guy, or they don't want to have the school system where it's rampant in the schools, right? But I'm telling you, it's in every single school. It's in probably every place of employment. It doesn't matter. I'm sure it's at police departments, you know. You got guys that have injuries everywhere. So it's a societal issue. It's a societal problem that we need to address. So part of our solution that we feel is that we're going to do an education portion to this, okay? We're going to go to the schools. We're going to talk to all the teachers. We really did, actually, we did a presentation up in North Branch about 2 weeks ago. We sat with the whole staff. It was their professional development day. Had a great 1-hour session with them, talked about everything. And they had some really, really good questions about it. So really we want to start hitting the orientations. We want to get the parents on board, okay? Because these kids are getting these pills from grandma and grandpa, right? Mom and dad, you know? So, and a lot of folks don't know that. You know, a lot of folks just aren't educated on it. So we're going to make a really big push in the next couple months on getting that information out there, okay? Securing your prescriptions, locking them up, hiding them, whatever you got to do, okay? Because it's not just the kids in your house you're worried about. It's what? It's their friends coming over, right? The kids that probably already have dabbled with it. Now they're going through their friends or their grandma's cabinets, you know, and they're stealing it, you know. So the education is huge for us. I'm also looking at a program, and actually Macomb County is running it right now, where it's basically if somebody wants to come into our office and just be really open and say, I am an addict, I need help. We want to be able to be there for them to get them the resources they need, right? Whether it's driving them to a facility locally or not, it's important for us to attack it from different levels, not just the law enforcement perspective, which we're going to do, right? We got 2 canines we're looking at. We're going to have 1 here probably by summer to address that. Finding heroin on traffic stops is really difficult because I don't know if anybody has seen it. It's tiny, very little. Also, an issue that we're having, back in December, we had our first case of carfentanil. Does anybody know what carfentanil is? It's an elephant tranquilizer, right? 1,000 times stronger than morphine. No, 10,000 times stronger than morphine. And it's as small as 3 grains of salt. It's tiny, super little. And what these guys are doing is that they're cutting that heroin with it to really get people addicted, right? Either it's going to make them an addict forever or it's going to kill them, right? So we're seeing a huge influx in overdoses. Now we've tried to counteract some of that with the Narcan, and it's been successful. We've done a really good job. However, some of these guys, what they're doing is they're buying the Narcan over the counter, they're bringing it home, they're having their buddies shoot up with them, and then when they feel like they're going to tap out, they administer the Narcan. So they're really testing the limits of what the heroin is going to do, right? Unfortunately, once you start doing that, you build up a tolerance to the Narcan. Now it just doesn't take one shot of Narcan to get you through. It's going to take you 4 or 5, and we've seen that already. Narcan, I don't know if you guys are familiar, the nasal spray. Okay, you put it in the nose, shoot, boop, boop. But that's just part of it. So that is one of the major things that we're going to attack probably in the next few months. We're also go ahead, Kevin. Yeah. So it counteracts with the heroin. So if somebody so when you overdose, what happens is your respiratory system starts to shut down, and that's how you actually overdose. Yeah, the Narcan brings you out of it, right? Quick. Carfentanil? Carfentanil is the agent that they're cutting the heroin with to make it stronger. Yep, and when what they do is, if you've ever seen heroin, it's kind of a brown, off-colored white, and they chop it right into it. You can't, nobody knows what's in it, So that's a big thing for us that we're going to be working on over the next few months. And obviously, I don't know if you heard about the Zimmer situation we've had. That's been really big for us. We've been dealing with that. So what we're also going to start looking at, too, is doing a social media presentation with some of the schools as well to address some of this stuff, making threats against school. Obviously, that's something, in our mindset, it's churches and schools are our sacred ground, right? You don't mess with the churches, and you don't mess with the schools. Okay, we're not going to ever take that lightly. So, so I know we've heard, God, these kids are looking at life and this and that. Well, that's our foundation. You give that up, what do you have, right? So that's why, we got some things going on with that too. Probably in the next few weeks, we'll hear some more on that. Any questions so far?
If you do, talk into the mic, okay? So. Who's first?
Where are the drugs coming from?
Great question. So I worked undercover narcotics in Flint. And I'll tell you a little story. We were in a raid van. We're all suited up. We're ready to hit this house. We're ready to go. I look out the window of the van, and I see a kid tying off in a parking lot. And I looked, and I was like, oh, my gosh, you got to be kidding me. So, of course, we jump out. We grab the kid, bring him into the van. And come to find out, he was from Lapeer, okay? He was 17 years old, from Lapeer, his relative was still an active police officer in Lapeer County. Not necessarily at our department, but was still working. He told me, he said, this is what a lot of addicts do. They come to Flint, they buy, they shoot up, and then they drive home, okay? We don't really see the huge big drug dealers like Flint or somebody else has. We've got mostly what we'll see is a guy going over there to buy, maybe for 3 or 4 people, then bringing it back, and usually it's enough to cover what their addiction is. You know what I mean? So Flint, and everybody knows, Flint to me, and I worked there when they had 65 homicides in 1 year, that was a record back then. Maybe it was 67. I mean, it is the murder capital. I mean, it is by far the most dangerous city in the United States as far as I'm concerned. And that's, 15 minutes away, right? That, we have some contract spots on the west side of the county. Those are huge. And I know for a fact that it deters. It really does. I've had buyer, I've had people that I've tried to set up. I've had tried to bring dope dealers to do deals. They would not come near. They wouldn't even get to Davison because they know. Our laws are stiff when it comes to this, and we don't mess around, and that's perfectly fine with me. So Flint is by far the biggest one. Obviously, you have Pontiac to the south. You've got Detroit, and you got Port Huron. Port Huron's not as big. It's a little bit of a further drive. I mean, they can get it 15 minutes. That's the obvious choice for them. You know, when I worked undercover, we would follow dope all the way down to Georgia. You know, you follow the trail back, you know, whether it's the money you're following or the narcotic itself. So it comes up that 75 pipeline, you know, and then you have another major thoroughfare in 69, you know. So we're right in the middle of, like, in my view, we're like in the middle of the Mecca. You know, Lapeer to me is safe. We do a good job. We've got great people that live here, you know, and we're fighting it off daily. You know, so, yes, sir.
Hold on, Bill.
Oh, you need a microphone.
Thanks for coming out tonight, by the way. But what is there an average user? I guess I look at and I see some of these kids now get involved with it. My son just graduated from college. My daughter's going to be graduating next year or so. So they're kind of past it. And they weren't. It just wasn't the same. It wasn't. I mean, there's always stuff out there, right. But there's just the resurgence of that. Is it the affordability of it, or what is it that's causing the kids? And is there a quote-unquote average user? Is there something that, what do you see the most as your average? Because I hear an awful lot of folks in their early 20s, seems like maybe people that have gotten out of school or college and just kind of fallen off, and you read about those in the paper.
Right. Average user. There is no average user. You know, we have somebody in our jail that was my basketball coach, was my teacher. You know, was he on heroin? No, but we've seen what he did. You see what the effects are. So, you know, you have a 67-year-old man in our jail that nobody in the world would have think that he would do what he did to try to get what he needed, you know. Heroin is very cheap, okay? That's part of the reason why people travel to Flint. Right now, about the price for a Vicodin is going from anywhere between $6 and $10 per pill, depending on the milligram. So they can go to Flint and buy a gram and get them through 2 days instead of one pill. You know what I mean? So there is no face to it. You know, another story, when I was working over there, we got called to assist. A couple ladies would set up shop in a hotel over there, prostitute all day. So we went in there, we raided it. Come to find out, these ladies were stay-at-home moms. What they would do is they would put their kids on the school bus, run into Flint, set up shop, have all their customers, shoot up, and return home before the kids got off the bus and husband came home from work. So there is no face to it. It affects everybody differently and ultimately in a negative way. You know. Sorry, she trumped you.
I'm just wondering if your department, when you start going into the schools, if you would be interested in working with families against narcotics.
Absolutely. And I've talked to Peggy.
Yes, Peggy.
Yep, I've talked to Peggy. She's a wealth of knowledge for us. Yeah, we talked to her quite a bit. And actually some of the programs that we're looking to getting into, she will definitely be a part of it.
What's your take on the students that vape? Because I did see it did show up on the news briefly, and I know that's part of what they'll get addicted to or what they might switch to before they switch back, and a lot of that does go on.
Right. Explain to everybody what vaping is.
Vaping is essentially what they do is, don't know for sure the name of the drug, but they put it and it's in a heating coil, and it turns it into a mist, pretty much, or steam, which they then inhale. It is incredibly potent, and they get hooked on it. I mean, when you can see fumes coming out of a bathroom when you're walking down the hall, somebody's like really into it. And it stinks too. It's got a weird smell to it. You can't really there's nothing else I can say that's similar to it, but it's just off. But it's really, really big. Started, like you said, most of the problems seem to start in middle school. I agree. And then go up through high school. I graduated from Imlay City.
All right.
So,
Former alum.
and
All right. Yeah.
I can say, not on a daily basis, but on a weekly basis, you can walk around and you'll see somebody doing something.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it's disappointing, too, because, like you said, there's no average user. You'll be surprised by everything you find.
Right, yep. There's no face to it. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty new to the whole vaping thing. That wasn't around when I was going through. You know, but part of our program is getting canine, and what we plan on utilizing the dog for is going through schools. Everybody seems to be on board from all the school districts, and actually are welcoming us coming in. Hopefully that'll help some of that stuff, but you know, it's hard. You know, really you're just kind of treading water, you know, doing some of that stuff, but sure.
Are you serious? Okay, so we just had the dogs come through Lapeer High School, right? And when they do that, they put the school on lockdown so none of the kids are out in the hall.
Right,
But their backpacks are with them in the classroom.
right.
So they go through the hallway, and there's nothing in their lockers. But most of these kids carry it in their backpacks.
Right. And that's something that we just have to be careful about with dogs. I know there's a liability end to it with the schools. They're very worried about dogs getting in contact with the children, because if they do have something on them and the dog decides to bite. Yeah, and some schools do that actually. They'll line up their backpacks outside. You know, I can't speak for Lapeer why they don't do that. I don't know if they have I don't know if they have a particular policy why they don't do that. That I couldn't answer. Maybe that'd be something that Mr. Wandry could answer, or somebody else from the school district. But you're right. You know, 90% of the time they're going to have it with them, or they're going to be running for a bathroom to flush. So.
Can you give us an estimate on how much crime is committed as a result of somebody who's a user or who is addicted trying to raise funds so they can get their next high?
Good question. I had a conversation with a former prosecutor here in Lapeer County, and this isn't concrete. This was just an estimate, an opinion more or less, and he thought it was between 65 and 70% of the crimes. So, you know, when you attack a problem like that, it's much bigger than just the heroin problem. It's the B&E problem. It's people crashing cars because of their high. You know, I mean, it's endless. You know, fraud, and there's so many crimes associated with drug use, getting the drug. Anybody else? Sure. Well, yeah, we still do. Still do. You know, it's still considered a federal crime. Right, we still writing, you know, arrest warrants for it until we hear otherwise. Yeah, that's our approach. You know, and I know things are changing. Sheriff McKenna was actually trying to set up somebody from the state to come in and a representative from the medical marijuana group, and just have an open discussion and discuss it and get educated about it, you know.
Take the marijuana, or worse, to have an arrest record on them. You know, what's going to be more
damaging to them?
To their
Sure.
life, the arrest warrant or the marijuana that they might try once.
Right.
I know it's a hard problem.
It is, you know, and there's so many people, it goes both, you know, so many people are for it, so many people are against it. Our take is that we just want everybody to be educated on it, and we'll go from there. And what we're told to do from Lansing, and that's what we'll do.
I have a question.
Hey, you're the boss. Yeah.
Thank you for coming, and
Sure.
I'm sure this is very interesting. But I do have another question, getting off the subject a little bit. We can
Okay.
get back on it if you want to, folks. But my question is, with all the stuff that's going on with the sheriffs throughout the country, and they're refusing or going along with things like the illegal aliens and enforcing those laws, and we got sanctuary cities and all the rest of that. It's my opinion that the sheriff for each of these counties, okay, every county, is really the front line defender of the Constitution and all these laws,
Right.
okay? You know, Sheriff McKenna and yourself, you two are the highest officers in this county. Anyhow, I want your opinion on how you feel about that. If the case came to you or the situation came to you where you were asked to do something that in fact really isn't constitutional for you to do, I don't
Right.
care who asked you,
Right.
okay, would you be the person that follows the constitutions and follows that law, or would you do what's being told you to do?
Well, you hit it right on. We are going to follow the Constitution. There's, this isn't a sanctuary city, as far as I know, and we're going to follow the Constitution 100%. Go ahead, Mike.
Just a quick statement, Under
Sure.
Sheriff and Lieutenant. The situation with Zimmer School.
Mm-hmm.
I know all the parents are pretty much relieved because of the way you attacked what happened on that Monday and how you've sent some deputies out there all for observation purposes to let them know that their children are safe. I just want to thank you guys for doing that.
Well, thank you very much. And really, a lot of the credit goes to our detectives. They worked 6-7 days in a row, probably on 12 hours sleep combined. They did a really good job. Once you start getting into some of that crime and you start getting into some of the electronic end of it, because there is electronics that were seized or whatever, some of these items had 33,000 files on them, on one piece of, on a cell phone, let's say. So our guys are just doing, and they're still working on it, doing a fantastic job getting that case done.
This question is kind of like along the lines of Tim's. If the sheriff department, the sheriff is on the top rung of a ladder, what rung of the ladder is the federal government on?
That's a good question. You guys probably know more than I do. I don't know.
They're not on the ladder.
Okay.
The U.S. Constitution does not give them, the federal government, any police power, and the 10th Amendment reserves that right to the states and the people.
Well, thank you for the education.
Just wanted to let everybody know that, too.
Are you in agreement with former President Barack Obama that drug trafficking is a nonviolent crime?
No, I'm not in agreement with that, but thank you. Yeah.
Just a real quick question.
Sure.
In Michigan, we still have the asset forfeiture on drug arrests?
Yes.
Is that something that we're doing in Lapeer County?
Yes, we do have a drug forfeiture process that we have, absolutely.
Can you describe that for me?
Probably not as good as some of our other detectives. Usually what happens when we have a drug case and property is seized, they receive the tabulation of what's being taken. Then they have an opportunity to post bond on it. And from what I understanding, some of this is changing. I'm not up to speed on all of the drug forfeiture stuff. And then when the case goes, or the bond hasn't been posted, it is essentially turned over to either like an auction that we have, and it goes into an account a drug forfeiture account. That's kind of why the need for the posting of the bond is for. They're contesting that. So if they skip that process, then right, they're forfeiting that.
Any more questions?
Thank you very much,
Yep.
Sheriff. Let's give him a hand.
Under Sheriff.
Very good.